Afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum coming to you live from Santa Cruz, and I'm very, very happy to be here. And today I wanted to go over something that's really near and dear to my heart because so many people are having trouble with this, and I've had a lot of patients ask me to reach out and let people know that something can be done about it. And so it's a pretty fair assumption that there's a very large amount of people in the United States that are suffering from something called peripheral neuropathy. And this is something that we work with in my office, and but I don't think a lot of people understand what it is or even know that it can be helped. So today I thought I would do my show talking about peripheral neuropathy so people could actually understand a little bit about it and find out that there is something that they can do about it, and try to give you the information where you can um, get involved and do something to help yourself with this. So I'm going to start by just kind of reading a letter that has been put together based on this condition called peripheral neuropathy. Again, my name is Dr. Duncan McCollum. I'm a chiropractor in Capitola. I've been in practice for over 35 years. I've worked with a lot of different types of injuries, all kinds of spinal injuries, accidents, sports injuries, babies. And, the one thing that I've learned throughout all of this is that a body that communicates heals. So, one of the basic premises of natural healing and chiropractic is the body heals by its innate intelligence. And all we need to do is free up the innate intelligence so the body can do what it does best, and that's heal. BJ Palmer, one of the developer of chiropractic, after his father, D.D. Palmer, made the first adjustment in 1895. BJ took over the profession for many decades. And one of the things that he always said is the body heals from above down, inside out. So, what does that mean? From the brain down through the spinal cord, from the spine, the nerves come out and go to every cell and organ in the body. So, you have 75 trillion cells, only 31 spinal nerves going to all of those cells. So, when we look at the body of healing from above down, inside out, we got to realize that the brain needs to function correctly. And even if it itself is functioning correctly, its communication pathways need to be functioning correctly. One of the big hidden problems that people don't understand or don't really get the full idea about is this thing called um, chronic inflammation. Inflammation in the body causes so many diseases. In fact, 15 out of the 16 leading diseases, chronic diseases, they have at their source or a major part chronic inflammation. So if chronic inflammation plays that big of a role, shouldn't it be addressed when we're looking at getting people healthy? So what causes chronic inflammation and what can be done about it? And how does that tie in with peripheral neuropathy? So that will be the subject of today. So basically the body is like and the 75 trillion cells are like a whole bunch of little engines. Each cell consumes fuel, creates energy, and spills out exhaust. And as long as the fuel supply to the cells works right, the body heals or functions well. Just think of the gas filter on your car. If that gets plugged, the car is not going to run very well. So when your body gets different toxins from the foods we eat, from the environment, from our own cellular dysfunction or cellular function, meaning it's doing its job and dumping the exhaust in between the cells to be eliminated from the body. When that's not working well, then those cells, the toxins or the exhaust in between those cells, will make the cell walls become inflamed. Just like if you had a hose in your exhaust pipe sticking in your cab with the windows rolled up and you're driving, that exhaust in the cab of the car is going to make you sick, if not worse. So we need to make sure that our body's eliminating these toxins. And this can be so subtle that over years and years and years, it will slowly cause disease and chronic inflammation. And that is the thing that is actually creating a tremendous amount of problems with our body's ability to heal. So when we talk about peripheral neuropathy, we need to look at the brain down through the spine, out of the spine, down to the toes, down to the hands, and to the organs of the body, because you have peripheral nerves that feed those nerves, those organs as well, like the lungs, heart, large intestine, small intestine, kidney, liver, all that stuff works well when the nerves are communicating well. That's the basic, the communication from the brain down. So when you get chronic inflammation, eventually it's going to get in the brain because it opens up something called the blood-brain barrier, the inflammation, the toxins and inflammation in the blood supply and in the body slowly open up the spaces between the lining of the blood vessels, not only in your large intestine, that's usually where it starts first, but also in the brain. So the large intestine barrier, because of inflammation from bad foods and such like this, will start to cause inflammation in the intestines, something called leaky gut, get bad big particles into the bloodstream floating around, trying to get out by the liver. The liver's trying to do its job, but it soon gets plugged and is overloaded. And then you have kind of dirty exhaust flowing around through the body at infinitum. And this is what causes chronic disease. So, how does this tie in with peripheral neuropathy? And why is it so subtle? And I have kind of come up with this thought that all chronic disease eventually leads to peripheral neuropathy. 25 million Americans are suffering with peripheral neuropathy. So if that, or excuse me, have been diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy. So if that's the case, how many people have not been diagnosed but are suffering the consequences of it and don't realize that they are? So what I want to do is I'm going to go into um, I'm going to read the letter that is talking about peripheral neuropathy, and here it goes. It goes, my dear friend, I'm not really sure when I first noticed it, nor what it was I did notice. All I remember is one day there was just a feeling of foreboding over me, kind of like I was doomed. At first, it would just fade in and out, and I wasn't really sure. I didn't want to believe it was really there. I think I was trying to will it away. It didn't work. That was 3 years ago, and now it seems my worst dreams have come true. Now it's with me every day. When I wake up, if I even sleep, I spend a few minutes taking stock, hoping it might have magically gone away. Well, that is what I did for a while, but now it's part of me every moment and it won't go away. So this is the onset of this thing called peripheral neuropathy. It usually starts very subtly. And, this is the thing I say is there's two words that you don't want to hear is peripheral neuropathy because pretty much they say there's not much you can do about it. Now, we have found that we can definitely help it in most cases. And we've had a lot of changes in people where they've been able to do things that they didn't think they could do. Um, if we can turn it around, slow it down, and get some of your life back, we've seen that happen in a lot of people. So it's worth at least investigating because it could change your life. So what happens with peripheral neuropathy? You just start to subtly feel it. It might be in your toes or your hands and might keep you awake at night or feel like you have a wadded up sock in your shoe. And it's bothersome and it might come and go for a while. But then it starts to stick around. And pretty soon, like a hockey stick, it gets worse until it escalates pretty rapidly. And the best thing is to catch it before it does that or early on in the escalation. Because, the sooner we catch it, the better, because those nerves are basically shriveling up and shrinking back up towards the spine. And this is because of the lack of oxygen, the loss of oxygen and nutrition to the tissues at the end of the extremities, typically, like your toes or your fingers. So when you lose oxygen and nutrients to the tissues, like the little toe bones aren't getting enough nutrition, the skin bones aren't, the fingernails aren't. the muscles aren't, the nerves themselves aren't getting the oxygen they need to be alive, so they start to break down. So that is the definition of peripheral neuropathy. When you're starting, well, peripheral means outside of, first and foremost. So we'll go into that. So as I mentioned, 25 million people have been diagnosed with peripheral neuropathy, which means millions more don't know or haven't a clue yet that they are suffering from this. So let's just kind of define the terms. The central nervous system, you have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So the central nervous system is everything inside the skull, down through the center of your spine. That is the central nervous system. Then we have the peripheral nervous system, which is when the nerves leave the spine and go to all of the organs, the extremities, every cell outside of the central nervous system. So if you think of the central nervous system as inside your home, and then everything outside your home as the garden and yard. The garden and yard would be the periphery of your house. The nerves in the garden and yard of your body are called the peripheral nervous system. So when those get damaged, that's when we start to have the problems. So this is what we want to assess is how much damage is done during this time. So the nervous system, the peripheral nervous system has 31 pairs of nerves that exit your spine. So in other words, you have 31 branches coming out of this tree called the spinal cord or spinal column. And those 31 branches or nerves feed 75 trillion nerves or 75 trillion leaves, if you will, right? Now, a lot of those, excuse me, cells, not nerves, a lot of those cells clump together to become organs like your liver, your kidney, your heart, your large intestine, your small intestine, the spleen, pancreas, all that stuff are groups of those cells working together as a team. And you might have one major branch affecting that organ, but a lot of the individual cells are also getting their own communication from the central nervous system as well on how to function or not. So, those 31 pairs of nerves, any one of them can become damaged. You have nerves in your neck, that the top of your neck, that go to your head. And a lot of times people get headaches or numbness in their head. They might get uh, lack of balance. That's those nerves that come out of the top of the head. So we have to check those. And as we go down the neck, we get to the nerves that go to something, the longest nerve in your body is called the vagus nerve. And it comes out right where, right below your ear, there's a point that you can feel a bump there. That's where the top bone is in your neck called the vagus nerve. And that nerve comes out of there and comes out of the spine completely and goes to every organ in your body, controlling it automatically. That's why it's called the autonomic nervous system or automatic nervous system. You don't have to think about it, it just works. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so that's the central nervous system. I mean, the peripheral nervous system coming out of the body. Down right at the top of your shoulders and the base of the neck, those nerves come out, and those are the ones that go into the shoulders and down into your hands and fingers and give you muscle control, balance, vibration, touch, hot, cold, numbness, tingling, all that kind of stuff comes out of there. So I will be back in just a minute. I'm going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Okay, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum. I'm back. I'm talking about the peripheral nervous system and this terrible thing people are suffering from called peripheral neuropathy. And that's when the nerves in the spine coming out that have come out of the spine are getting damaged. Again, there's 31 paraspinal nerves going to 75 trillion cells. Then you have the vagus nerve, which comes out and goes to all of the organs and controls them automatically. So what happens to these nerves is the head of the nerve, or the brain of the nerve is in the central nervous system, and the branches that come out come all the way out and go all the way down to your toes. And those are what we call axons, and they're the one that can deliver signals from the brain down, and also they get information from the extremities up. So when you put your foot on a hot coal, by the beach, you're going to feel it and jump instantaneously because your brain has sensed that there's something wrong there and it doesn't want to get burned. This is also, it gives you balance, stops you from tripping, lets you know when your feet are too cold or too hot, and helps you determine placement of your feet, limb position, and all this stuff. So when these nerves start to dry up or decay because of different types of injuries, diabetic neuropathy, by the way, is number one for causing this, but it doesn't have to be just diabetic neuropathy. It can be other sources as well, and we'll go into some of those as we go along here. So again, periphery means outside or around, and neuropathy means a pathology of the nerve or something not working right with the nerve. So this would be anything that gives you a wrong communication. You know, it's supposed to be hot, but it feels cold. You know, you're supposed to be able to know where your foot is on the gas pedal or not, but you can't figure it out because you have no communication there. It could be partial communication or a complete lack of communication. So those are problems with a nerve called a neuropathy. Okay. Every nerve in the peripheral nervous system has a specific job. So all these nerves are there for a reason. Some are sensory, they relay sensations such as temperature, pain, vibration, touch, hot, cold, things like that. And then you have the motor nerves. Those are the ones that, you know, get the muscles working and keep you ambulating and keep you standing. When you're standing up, you don't have to think about that, but those autonomic nervous systems are making sure your postural muscles are keeping you stable and balanced. So a lot of times when those get neuropathy to those nerves, you might lose your balance, lose your mobility, you might tire quicker, and you know, you might even get some of the conditions where you have tremors and various things like that because of the nerve is not getting the signal from the brain right, and so the nerves aren't able to function correctly. Then you have the autonomic nerve that we talked about, the vagus nerve that controls things like blood pressure, sweating, heart rate, digestion, bladder function, and all that kind of stuff. So when we look at the peripheral nervous system, we want to assess and find out what is not working well. And some of the first signs for you might just be burning in your feet, hot, sweaty, uh, feel like you have wads in your socks, tingling in your hands, feet, legs, itching, burning, things like that. So one of the things that we hear when people come in is there's various things that are causing the peripheral neuropathy, and but also there are symptoms that you may not really understand are related to peripheral neuropathy. Now, I just want to let you know, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum. I'm a chiropractor in Capitola. I've been in practice for over 35 years, and I'm talking about peripheral neuropathy. If you want to find out more, we do have workshops coming up in April, but I think it's the third weekend in April on Wednesday and Thursday. But you may not want to wait. You can always come in and just do a complimentary consultation with us to find out whether or not you might be a candidate. And if so, then we'll talk about the testing that we do, which I'll go into a little later in this talk. But don't wait. The longer you wait, the worse it's going to get and the harder it's going to be to fix. So if you think you're having problems with this, then the number is 831-459-9990. And I'll give that number several times, 831-459-9990. And don't wait till it's too late. You know, get in as soon as you can. And we will do the testing, take some x-rays, see what your spine looks like, test 7 different peripheral nerve functions in your extremities, as well as take thermo images. Now, that whole exam is $99. It's worth way more. But since people are stuck with this symptom of peripheral neuropathy with no real answers, we wanted to make it possible for people to at least find out whether they do truly have that, how bad it is, and what may or may not be able to be done about it. So, it's a chance to just kind of go, well, I really want to get my life back. A lot of times I get people that are close to retirement or have retired, and they've worked their whole life to be able to spend that time in traveling with their loved one, doing things that they've dreamt about, whether it's, walking on cobblestone streets somewhere, or hiking on the beach or on the trails, walking their dog and watching their grandkids play on bumpy, lumpy, trippy football fields, So losing your ability to balance and walk steadily is a sign of peripheral neuropathy. A lot of times patients come in and they had fallen. And I ask them what happened. They go, I tripped on a curb, or I tripped on one of those cement things in a parking lot. And, when we had more balance and more reactive time, which are neuropathy or nerve functions, when you were to trip, like on a little lip on a sidewalk where a root has broken it, the cement a little bit, you trip, you catch your balance, you right yourself, and you keep on going, not even thinking about it. But as these nerves start to decay or become damaged, that trip could cause us to fall because we don't have the reaction time. So that's another thing. If you're feeling less able to get around than you or somebody then this is something that you want to get checked out. So the peripheral neuropathy workshop we're doing I believe it's the third week of next month, but don't wait if you want to come in and just find out what's going on. This show here might be enough for you to go, yeah, I got to get that checked out. So some of the symptoms that steal your function and your livability are absolutely trouble walking. That's one of the main ones. Balance issues, difficulty on stairs, going up and down stairs. You have to go one stair at a time. You don't feel like you need to hold the banister because you just don't have that eye, hand, foot coordination that you used to have. Oftentimes, trouble sleeping. People just have trouble getting to sleep because of the numbing, tingling, hot blanket on their feet bothers them, these kind of things. You might experience burning or freezing of your feet. They might always be cold or always be too hot. You might feel pins and needles. This is pretty common. Pain, numbness. The pain is really not great. Numbness is, none of us is good. Swelling, oftentimes because your lymphatic system, which drains the cleansing fluid out of your extremities. This lymphatic fluid gets stagnant and it doesn't get out of your, especially with gravity, out of your feet and legs because the muscles aren't able to work well enough. Because of lack of nerve control that would contract them. Also, the blood supply might be too relaxed down there, the tone of the blood vessels, so you get this swelling down there. Then you might just get tired and feel heaviness all the time because your body is just not doing well. Um, so a couple other things you might notice is, let's see, my thing just turned off, unfortunately. A couple other things you might notice is difficulty driving. This is real common where people feel like they don't have the ability to drive their car the way they would like to. Um, they can't tell where the gas pedal is or where the brake is. And they're driving kind of just hoping that they're got their foot in the right place. This is more common than you'd think. And it's really a scary thing, but it is something that we do see happening quite often. So and a lot of times you don't want to tell a family member, you don't want to tell your husband, your children, because the last thing you want to do is lose your independence. So that's one of the main things that we want to help you make sure as you maintain is your independence. And being able to drive is so important. Um, because without that, you don't have your independence. And so that's, those are a couple of the other things that we really work on. And sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty here. There we go. And so feeling the pedals, yeah, that would be that. Then tight bands of saran wrap around your feet or your ankles is another thing that people talk about a lot. So if you notice that, then that's also telling us that there's something wrong with the communication there. Sometimes people feel like they have sponge or spongy marshmallow bunched up in their socks or socks wadded up type feeling. And that is something that we definitely see a lot. Of course, loss of independence. I've already talked about that. Unable to enjoy outdoors, gardening, or yard work because you're afraid of falling. And then you don't want to socialize as much because you just don't want to be a burden on people and you don't want to have people see that you're starting to lose some of your ability to get around. So you don't attend the events that you like to. Now, this is peripheral neuropathy I'm talking about. I mean, it's definitely something that needs to be addressed for those people that are having problems with this. Don't just wait and let it and hope that it goes away because it won't. Unless you do something about it, and a lot of times you're given medication to try to help the problem, but it doesn't necessarily um, make it go away. So that is something that you want to take into consideration. What can you do? And again, this is the one that really hit me as a patient of mine. She'd been a patient for years, still is, and she is just about to retirement age. And I remembered her telling me that she couldn't wait to go to Europe with her husband and just have some time away. And then I asked her about it. She goes, "No, I don't think we're going because my peripheral neuropathy is so bad. I'm afraid of walking on the cobblestones." So this dream slowly faded. And we're working to get that back for her. But when that dream slowly fades, you start to adjust your enthusiasm for life to your body's ability to function. So a lot of times people go down, down, down with this, and they're not really getting the enjoyment out of life they should. So this is one of the reasons that I really like to focus on this because we have given people so much help in this area. I can't say that everybody can be helped. Some people wait too long, so don't wait. But if there's looks like we can help you. We've seen people with 80% loss of nerve function and more get a lot of improvement to where they were able to drive and go on a motorhome trip where they didn't think they could. Even people in their 20s have had this from chemical toxicity. So we just need to remove that and help regrow the nerves. And I'll explain how we do that in a few minutes. Um, so I mentioned hiking on the beach, trails, uneven surfaces. Santa Cruz is filled with that. So of course we want to make sure that you can do the hiking that you want, play with the grandchildren, attend sport games and graduations. A lot of a lot of seniors come in here and say they have trouble walking their dog, and that gives them all of their enjoyment. So um, we've helped a lot of people get that back, right? To where they feel like they can walk the dog and they're out there enjoying life. So let's see. Just I want to go over a couple of the other things because I really want to make sure that we hit the thing that may be bothering you out there or somebody that so that oh yeah, that does relate to me. Even trouble riding in cars because you're in a fixed position for so long can cause a lot of trouble. A lot of times people don't like to entertain as much. They have trouble cooking because they're standing up. It makes their feet go numb or their back hurts or, even cleaning or standing. So you can't do these things around the house that you'd like to do. So that is, that's not okay there, especially when something can be done about it. Now, a lot of times, we think there's a magic pill, and there's not. It takes work, it takes effort on your part. You have to be willing to put in the time and, the in finances that it takes. The insurance isn't going to really do anything but give you medications to cover it up. But the first thing you need to know is, can I be helped? Because if we think we can help you, that's one thing. If we think we can't, then it's a moot point. So I think it would be worth just giving us a call, 831-459-9990 for you or somebody you know, 831-459-9990. We can send you some more information. You can sign up for a complimentary consultation. And then if it looks like we should go forward, we would do the $99 evaluation for you. But if we'll never get to that point if it doesn't look like this is the right place for you. Um, so we just want to make sure you're able to enjoy your retirement and or your life, even if you aren't retired. I have a lot of people in their 70s and 80s still out there actively doing what they love to do. And some of it's work related, some of it's gardening and these kind of things. But we want to make sure that you feel mentally able and have the emotional stability that your body's okay and you're not filled with fear and anxiety and frustration. And, the last thing you want to do is become a burden on your family. So let's just go over some of the causes of diabetes. So, of course, of peripheral neuropathy, diabetes is the leading cause. 60% of the people in the United States are diabetic or pre-diabetic. Now, and 30 to 40% will develop peripheral neuropathy to some degree. So if you're on the diabetic spectrum and you're starting to get these symptoms, you want to address and rehabilitate the nerves, and we can help you do that. But also, you want to address the upstream cause of the problem, which would in this case be diabetes, which means clogged cell walls because of the toxins I talked about earlier in the show, the inflammation, chronic inflammation. And we can help address that chronic inflammation to help the cells get healthier so you don't need as much insulin to get the sugar or the glucose out of the bloodstream into the cells. So that's something that we can talk about. If you're on any kind of diabetic medication or under care from doctors, obviously check with them before you make any changes. But most of the time when people go and talk to their medical doctors about this, they're all for us trying to help them get their conditions turned around. Chemotherapy is another big one. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in the United States now, and 75% of the people are going to get some kind of chemotherapy or radiation. And let's see, and about 50% of all cancer case patients will get radiation, and we know that radiation burns the nerves. And the main treatment for this it still is radiation, chemo, or surgery. So um, a lot of times that whatever they need to do to help you in that arena, they don't necessarily treat the peripheral issues, which is something that you need to take a look at helping yourself and becoming educated in doing that yourself. And that's, when we one of the things we do is help you understand your condition and what you need to do and give you stuff to do at home. That's important. Environmental toxins like Roundup or glyphosate have been really called out for being a major problem with all kinds of health diseases, clogging the cells, causing some pretty devastating diseases in the body. And we also have things called forever chemicals, Teflon, um, different type of chemicals that keep things slippery, and we have it in our pots we cook with, we put it on our furniture, it's everywhere. And then the microplastics are everywhere. We get those in our cells, and there's a certain percent of them that are in our actually living in, or not living, but existing in our cells because they're so microscopic. And we want to try to help you understand how you can get those out of your body. Of food additives, right now, chemical fertilizers. Yeah, I always talk about, red dye number three finally got called out as a villain. The science industry's known for years that red dye number three was very um, caustic and, caused terrible things in the body. So they outlawed it recently. But the thing is that it's not going to be mandatory to get out of food till um, January 15th, 2027 or something. So even though they've now said we don't want it in the food anymore, they haven't taken it out of it yet, and they're giving the food industry enough time. I really hope that they just do all of those toxic foods as soon as possible so our bodies can become healthy. We are loaded with heavy metals from mercury, from the fish we eat. It comes down four generations through mom's umbilical blood, as well as lead. And I'm from the tail end of the lead generation, where most of our cribs were lined with lead paint. And, that would chip off and you'd suck on it or eat it. And so a lot of us have lead, mercury, and several other heavy metal toxins in our body. Cadmium, aluminum is huge. They've put it in the jet fuel now. So because it gives it more, it makes it have better gas mileage to the airplane. So now we've got the the exhaust of the airplanes coming down and putting more aluminum in our soil, on our trees, in our crops. It's not discriminatory on where it lands. And especially people that are in big cities around airports where there's thousands of flights coming and going all the time, you're going to have a higher amount of that aluminum. And we see it on the tests that we do to look for heavy metals. And then molds, their molds are always there. It's like we want to make sure that our body can fight them off. In fact, that's part of a good, strong immune system is the ability to combat the environment well or hold it off. Because if we lived in a glass box, our immune system would be shot. So we do need to be exposed to various type of um, substances, bacteria, viruses, even parasites, this stuff, our body needs to fight it off to stay strong. It's like diamonds are made out of stress. Coal's pressed into diamonds and it takes a long time. And our body's immune system is built on stress as well. When we become overstressed or overwhelmed, our body can break down. I'm sure we all know people that have incredible immune systems sitting right next to you, or maybe you're one of them and you never get sick, no matter what's going on. Then there's another person, that's always everything that comes along, they get. So there is a little bit of um, exposure factor there, like what have you been exposed to previously? And what are your DNA body's ability to fight things off? That's really important too. So those are the hidden infections. I mean, the hidden things, heavy metals, molds, and hidden infections. Infections can exist in organs and they can be low grade. They can exist in the bones. They can exist in so many different things. In fact, I had terrible sciatica a few years ago, and a chiropractor, you don't want to wake up with sciatica. And, it seems like every few years I get something. And it reminds me why I'm a chiropractor, because I think I kind of got to get the mindset of what a patient's feeling. But I had sciatica so bad that I couldn't walk. It was like I couldn't even go shopping. It was hard to get out of bed. And I'd done a lot of the traditional things. I went and got an MRI, and the radiologist, Dr. Solomon, said, that's the hole that nerve comes down is so small now. I think all you can do is ream it out. Well, that didn't sound good to me, so I held off on that and I was getting some other treatment. I stepped out of a friend's chiropractic office one day, and all of a sudden I felt like a shotgun blast go off on my right groin area. And I knew immediately that my appendix had ruptured. And I'd had food poisoning about maybe a few weeks before the sciatica started, and I didn't really think much about it. But soon as that appendix ruptured, my sciatic pain went away. Now, I was in the hospital for 5 days and I had to have emergency surgery, but the inflamed hidden infection in my appendix was putting pressure on that sciatic nerve. So that coupled with the problem with my low back, I broke it when I was a kid, and the very tiny opening for the hole. Once we took the hidden infection away, that hole was adequate for the nerve to function well, and I haven't had sciatica since. And I'm a pretty active guy. So we want to make sure that we're aware of, what is going on in our body? How are the systems working? What can we do to correct and adjust it? Sometimes there's deficiencies of vitamins or chemical toxicity is huge. I mean, that's one of the big ones. And it causes a lot of times something called autoimmune disease. Now, those chemicals can be under your sink, they can be where you work, they can be, if one of the sports you do, like if you're playing, different places where they use a lot of fertilizers and you're, mucking that up with, that can get enough of those chemicals in your body. And then eventually the body can't get rid of them and it starts to break down. And some of these get into the blood-brain barrier. Now we have autoimmune disease, which is the third most common disease in the United States right now. What is autoimmune? It means your body is fighting itself and it thinks it's is the enemy. It can't find out who to fight, so it fights itself. So this is huge. 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't really a very common word. People didn't really understand what it was. It wasn't very well um, founded in the traditional arena, but it became very prominent. And the people were saying, we're being told it was in their head. Started with fibromyalgia, um, which is just mean pain in the fibers of your muscles. That's what that word. All diagnoses mean just describe the symptom. And so autoimmune, of course, that's going to cause inflammation at the extremities and damage the nerves and damage the tissue. So as we're repairing the nerves in the tissue, we also need to address the autoimmune disease, whether it's a thyroid condition or some other kind of condition. We want to reduce the burden on the body so that we can address that autoimmune condition as well. Medications, there's a lot of medications. We take more drugs than any country in the world. We take 50% of all the drugs made in the world, and we're only 4% of the world population. So, um, but that's a lot of medications can cause peripheral neuropathy. If you are on medications, look them up and just see what the side effects are, because sometimes it will be right there. We know, like, I would look if you have take cholesterol meds or high blood pressure meds or others, just look it up and see, wow, what are the side effects of these? And then you have a lot of times many combined together, which make it even worse. Of course, alcohol consumption, chronic abuse of alcohol can cause a lot of trouble with those nerves, as well as smoking cigarettes. A lot of times people have what we call repetitive trauma, which they might, like when I was a mechanic, I would often hit my hand against the hubcap to put the hubcaps back on. And one of my bosses one day came over and said, "You got to stop doing that because you're going to cause nerve damage in your hand." And thank God I did, because being a chiropractor, I need my hands. Sometimes infections can affect these peripheral nerves and damage them. There's a little bit of inherent disorder, a little bit of genetic predilection, but it's very minor compared to the causes. So those things don't get turned on unless you have all these other things in place. And then some tumors can definitely be a problem, bone marrow disorder and other diseases. And again, I just to say pretty much all chronic disease will lead to peripheral neuropathy at some point. So this is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I'm just here talking to you about one of the things I see in my office, and it's a lot at times. It's called peripheral neuropathy. It means you've got problems going on in your extremities. And I want to talk about it in the community because a lot of people are just living, you know, their lives in quiet desperation, hoping it will go away and becoming more and more recluse as time goes on because they don't want to they don't want to let people know. They're afraid. The medical doctors might have told them that or put them on a medication that's maybe masking their symptoms, but not necessarily helping them. So another one of the things is that I want to talk about is, you may or may not have seen this, but several years ago, even on Time Magazine, there was the front of Time Magazine, the title was The Secret Killer, and it says a surprising link between inflammation and heart attacks, cancer, Alzheimer's, and other disease. What you can do to fight it. And so this was back in 2002, I think, that I got this article. And I've been studying even before that with guys that studied with Linus Pauling, even, not me, but one of his disciples, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, learning about how genetics had a role in all this, what is causing chronic inflammation, how to get the cell well. And so there's a couple things that need to occur. Number one, we need to fix a cell to get it well, which means we have to look at what I call the upstream cause, which is what's causing the inflammation. It's like if you have a kitchen sink that isn't draining and you keep trying to wash dishes, that dishwater is not going to get clean. And so you have dirty dishes being made out of dirty dishes. So imagine those 75 trillion cells in your body in that kitchen sink, which is plugged and it can't drain out. Those cells are going to become sick. And if those are brain cells, you're going to get brain conditions like, dementia, um, brain fog, some of those terrible diseases that are out there. So what do you need to do? You need to unplug the sink for sure. Well, that's your liver primarily in your body. We're not going to go rotor rooter your liver, but we are going to get it. It's like a vacuum cleaner um, filter. If you don't change the filter on your vacuum, it's going to stop working. And pretty soon it's going to blow up. And that's what happens to your health. When your liver can no longer detoxify your health or your body, it will get something's going to get sick. The weakest organ in your body is going to get sick first. And this is called wait and see healthcare. So wait and see means you go and you talk to somebody and go, well, let's wait and see. And so what are you waiting to see? Is it going to, if the body had the ability to heal itself, which we know it does, and you haven't altered the lack of communication so that the body can do that, then what are you waiting to see? And why does that make any sense? So that is, again, wait and see medicine. And I just don't think it's been that effective, or we wouldn't be rated 47th in the world for health. So when we talk about anything that's causing inflammation in the body, and this subject is peripheral neuropathy, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum. I've been a chiropractor in town for 35 years. I love being on the radio, and I just love the opportunity to share this stuff with you guys. So maybe you can do something to improve your health. So one of the things when you talk about the liver and it getting plugged, you also need to look at your gut, your large intestine, because there are bugs in there called microbiome. And there's 100 trillion of them in there where you only have 75 trillion cells. So you're more bug than you are human. But as the liver is cleaning itself and cleaning the blood, it's diverting that stuff, the bad stuff, either into your intestines via the intestinal itself or via the gallbladder, and or it's making it water soluble. The liver does this so the kidney can get rid of it for you. So the liver processes everything so either the kidney or the large intestine can get rid of it. Of course, you have your lungs and your skin are the other two ways that you detoxify. So anytime we look at trying to help people with peripheral neuropathy, which we've been very successful with, we also want to look at reducing the inflammation as we go. Because if you don't, it's just like bailing out a boat or filling up a tire that's leaking air but never taking the nail out. You have to fill it every couple of weeks. So it doesn't make sense because eventually that tire is going to blow up and it's, always the most inopportune time for you. So we want to make sure that as we're helping you overcome these things called peripheral neuropathy, we're going to look at the walls of your intestines via, well, we already know that everybody can improve their intestinal function. That's called leaky gut or intestinal permeability, where the tight junctions open up between those cells that line your intestine. Your intestinal wall is one cell thick. So that's crazy, isn't it? And the foodstuffs come out of the intestine and get into your blood supply. And then that takes nutrients to the cells in your brain and gathers up junk, cellular debris, and toxins that got into your body and pulls it out. The blood supply does, takes it to the liver and the kidney to get eliminated before it gets anywhere to cause any kind of damage. But so peripheral neuropathy doesn't just start willy-nilly. There's causes by it. And it could be just dysfunction in the spine too. I mean, you could have played football your whole life or many years, or different sports, been a runner and these kind of things, and damage the spine in several places where those peripheral nerves come out, that might be a major player in it. Oftentimes what we find is there's a lot of different things causing it. So it's like playing pickup sticks. You just have to remove one at a time. Um, in a fast enough period of time that we can actually make a difference. So that's the peripheral neuropathy part. All right, so this is Dr. Duncan McCollum. I'm not sure how far I'm going to get on this slideshow here today, but we want to make sure that your body's functioning well, and we also want to see if what your heavy metal toxicity load is. And this will help us figure out what we need to do to get the heavy metals out of your body. So we're pretty good at doing this. We've been doing it a long time, and I would really love to help you. So give us a call, Dr. Duncan McCollum, 831-459-9990. And just tell the staff, hey, I want to have a consultation with Dr. McCollum, or, when is his next seminar? I'd like to come. And I know I have this, I've been diagnosed with it. I want to see what you guys can do to help me. All these different type of things can help us figure out whether or not, there's something that we can do to help you. And, of course, I hope there is. So, the other couple things I wanted to talk about are, what happens if you think about a plant that has roots to it, and you pull those roots out of the ground and you wash all the dirt off. Those white little roots are what we call, that would in your body be the peripheral nerves. And then if you take those nerves or those roots and you put them in toxic water, they're going to get sick. If you take that same nerve and put it in healthy water, it's going to start to get well. So it's pretty cool how this works. So I'm going to take a short break and I'll be back in just a second. All right, so again, this is Dr. Duncan McCollum, McCollum Family Chiropractic, and I would love to have you come in and see if we could help you with your peripheral neuropathy or somebody you know. Just order some information, go to my YouTube channel, Dr. Duncan McCollum. You can also go to McCollum Wellness Radio podcasts. I have over 200 podcasts out there talking about different health things, and I'd love you to take advantage of that. And my website is is McCollumWellness.com. And you can also go to Dr. Duncan McCollum Facebook or Instagram and get some more information for that. So at any rate, hopefully this has been helpful for you. And if you know anybody that is suffering, have them come to my next workshop. Just call 831-459-9990 to find out about it, or give a call and come in and say, I just want to come in for a consultation, and we'll do that. So y'all have a great day, and I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks.